So after 3 years of uneventful entries into the series, Insomniac decided to go back to what the series was best at, action platforming. Into the Nexus is the 6th and presumed final PS3 installment, and also serves as an epilogue to the Future series. Even though it's not called Ratchet and Clank Future Into the Nexus, the game is much shorter than those before it, but it still has some unique things in it to give it its own identity. The story takes place seemingly in the middle of some big event that we missed out on, as Ratchet and Clank are on board a large ship with Clank and Zephyr, who are transporting a criminal named Vendra Prague, voiced by Nika Futterman, to galactic authorities. Her brother Nefton, voiced by Fred Tatasciore, hired thugs for less to track the ship's location, and as they invade it, Vendra is freed and they blow up the ship, killing Clank and Zephyr. Ratchet and Clank ultimately track down the Prague twins to their hideout, where it is revealed that they had built their own Dimensionator to bring their race, the Nethers, into Polaris. The Nethers are sort of purple ghost-like beings, and their leader is a massive monster named Mr. I. Once he is brought into the world, he betrays Vendra and decides to, you guessed it, take over the galaxy, leaving Ratchet, Clank, and Nefton to form a truce. While Insomniac made the excuse that out of all the story ideas they had that this one happened to be the shortest, I don't particularly find that to help explain why the story seems so rushed in terms of its pace, since it's pretty easy to spot the problems. For example, when Nefton brings Ratchet and Clank to his hideout, they try to make it very clear that they're longtime enemies. Like, there's even this crudely drawn Ratchet dartboard inside the hideout. Now, there's an idea for a joke there, I just don't think it's fully set up. It would have had more depth if the story was dragged out longer to better establish character, but that's just a slight complaint. Another thing is that they really tried to give Vendra this story arc, where her determination to find her race makes her into this villainous monster, and she always compares herself to Ratchet and how he gave up his search for the Lombaxes. Again, there's a great idea there, it's just not fully explored. The gameplay scheme has been changed slightly from A Crack in Time, but for some stupid reason, Ratchet now lost his ability to swim, which is complete nonsense. Like I said, there are some new gameplay features, such as a gadget that creates gravity streams from two sources so that Ratchet can glide across gaps, and gravity-related puzzles for Clank in the Netherverse. There are some familiar weapons that return, such as Mr. Zircon, who's this little destructive flying robot, but this time, as he upgrades, his whole bloodthirsty family joins the gunfight. The new weapons are still wildly creative. There's a nightmare box that launches a terrifying creature to scare enemies for a brief moment, and a morph gun that turns enemies into snowmen. Yes, I said snowmen. Now, while the gameplay has its own identity, some of the worlds do not, at least in my opinion. You do get to visit Planet Igliak once again, but some of the others just feel like slight redesigns of pre-existing ones. For example, Planet Thram is a swamp world where you have to battle giant aliens and sell their horns to the smuggler for bolts. It's also open-ended to fly around in, so any longtime fan will get a fond memory of Planet Sargasso from Tools of Destruction. But regardless, I still liked the game well enough to go for the Platinum Trophy, so it held my attention much better than the last two games did. Ratchet's character model still looks a little weird, and Talwyn is now voiced by Ali Hillis, and to be fair, she does a pretty decent job. One more thing I should bring up is that the ending is terrible. Once again, without giving it away, let's just say that as an epilogue, it does very little to wrap up the overall story and just sort of ends on a vague note. The game as a whole is alright, it feels really rushed, but it has a lot of enjoyment for such a short experience. You still get your battle arenas, your open worlds, and your cities, so it still feels true to the franchise. Will the series venture to the PS4 be bigger and better? I'll tell you in a later review.
Sir, we are within striking distance of the Nebulorks.
Fire Omni rockets on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
Whoops. Wrong button.